What's up? Today we're going to talk about the free phases you're going to go through kind of on your way to becoming a professional game designer. I can talk about this because my name's James Quigley. I went through college as a game design student and came out of college and got an associate level AAA game development job. So like on this topic, very specifically, I've been where you are making this video, so hopefully I can shortcut some of the mistakes and give you kind of a general roadmap of the process you're gonna go through if you want to get to the point of being like a professional game designer, someone who other people will pay money to design video game. This is on my experience, so your results may vary, but hopefully not too much. I like to break down the journey from novice to professional game designer in like 3 phases. I like to kind of call the triple E framework. Instead of AAA, it's triple E. To hopefully keep it in your mind. The first phase being exploration. The exploration phase, honestly, I wish I could go back a little bit. It can be a lot of fun because you don't know anything. You're down here, so whatever you do, honestly, is to your benefit. If you make anything, you're gonna be better because you've made nothing. And that's the biggest thing, is like actually making something. Which means to get through phase 1, things are really simple. All you have to do is go on YouTube, put the word tutorial or short tutorial in the search bar, and just do what the tutorial tells you to do. It's not that fancy. And the biggest thing about this phase is you're not trying to be fancy. You just have to accept that right now you're kind of dumb. You're very dumb. You're the dumbest you're gonna be, which is also great. But your biggest thing is just making small little things. When you're making things, you're gonna have these big ideas. Your head's gonna be filled with all of this delusion, and I call it delusion because you're just not that good yet, right? You haven't done the work to actually be good enough to make those things. The exploration phase, just focus on doing simple things and, be happy with that. The other thing is that when you start off, you're going to choose a game engine. That game engine is going to kind of determine what course you want to go. Maybe you're going to work in like Unity, maybe you're going to work in Unreal. Maybe if you like making tabletop games, it's like a tabletop system. As you're making little things, you're gonna run into frustration because you're just learning the tool. Think about if you're playing Pokemon. Your friend trades you like a Pokemon that's like level like 30, and you just started out and you're in Pallet Town or whatever. That Pokemon is really strong, but it's not going to listen to you as much as you would like. Like more than half the time, it's just going to ignore what you said because you're not strong enough to actually control that Pokemon. When you start off, that's what your chosen game engine or game system is. It's that really strong Pokemon. You're wrestling with it until you actually become strong enough, so then you can actually tell it what to do, and you can be the best of friends, and you can go conquer the Elite Four and everything. This phase can actually go by pretty fast. I would say if you're working on things pretty seriously, you can get through this phase anywhere from 1 month to 1 year. I was a dumbass, so it took me like 2 years to kind of get through this phase. And a lot of the stuff that you're making, you probably can get it done within like a day or so. You're not making anything super big. We're focusing on doing simple tutorials and finishing what we start. That's the most important thing about phase 1. We choose something simple and we finish it. Eventually, when you finish enough tutorials, you're going to start having thoughts about like, oh, what if I add a little bit here? Like I just finished this like basic character controller tutorial, like what if I add like a double jump, or I give the character mantling so it can climb up over ledges, or what if I want to try to do like a really basic climbing mechanic. When you start getting a lot of those ideas and you start basically extending yourself beyond the current tutorials and actually figuring out how to do things off book, that's a pretty good sign that you've entered phase 2, which I like to call experimentation phase. The experimentation phase is like what it said, it's about experimenting. Whoa. Following a tutorial, maybe you're like doing a tutorial and adding to it. Maybe you're just like looking at little mechanics that are in other games, like, oh, how do I make like a gun that swaps between like an assault rifle, and if I hit a button it turns into a grenade launcher and fires? How do I do that? How do I do something like the axe in like God of War Ragnarok, where like I throw it and it jumps between a bunch of enemies and then it comes back and goes back into the player's hand? You're starting to kind of like solve these more complex problems. You're getting smarter. You're slowly you're growing because you're doing things. This can be really fun. Phase 2, you also kind of run into, for lack of a better term, I didn't have a good name for this, but I actually found this book at the library today. It's called The Dip. It's The Dip. You see this little guy, and he's dipping. This is you as you're entering the second phase. You're down here and you're dipping because you're sad. Why are you sad? Why are you dipping in phase 2? Because doing stuff off book and growing your skills is hard. You're in this kind of messy period that beginning fun explorative curiosity has gone away. You're not at like a part where you have a lot of confidence, so you kind of like stall. It doesn't feel great. The thing I wanted to do is draw you a little something on the whiteboard to just kind of show this. So this is you at phase 1 over here. And then you might want to think of like phase 2 as like being right here, and phase 3 as being over here. And you're saying, okay, maybe I just have to go, okay, I do a little bit of stuff in phase 1, I jump to phase 2, and I jump to phase 3. The problem is it's not a straight jump. What this actually is it's more of like a really shitty EXP bar. So that whenever you make something, you add just a little bit into the EXP bar. And so maybe you're starting off and you're like, okay, I'll make a little thing. I'm following a tutorial. I'm making a character controller. And you're filling up that EXP bar in like towards phase 1. The problem is, just like any game, just like Pokemon, to continue the analogy, like you can't stay in Pallet Town and keep killing the same guys. So the tutorial that might have given you like a lot of EXP starts giving you very little. And like eventually, to actually start making faster jumps, you have to do harder things. So like instead of just making a character controller, okay, I have to make like maybe like a Titanfall character controller that has like a bunch of like movement stuff to it. And then I have to like maybe figure out how to like do momentum, and I gotta make like a level for it. And the problem is with this phase 2 here is you're past the point at the beginning where it was a lot of fun and it was very easy, and you've kind of hit this slow down period. On top of that, it's frustrating. On top of that, you're still very far off from phase 3, which is actually like one, like where it maybe gets a little bit of fun and you feel like you actually have confidence, and two, like where you're actually going to get paid. Phase two, you're in it for the longest time. I was in phase two for a good 2 years. Before I actually like started getting to phase three. So it really sucks being in here, but it's the only way to actually get to our goal of being a professional, is just continuing to strive away. And like whenever something gets a little easier, we then have to do something bigger again to continue to push us forward. And when it gets a little easier, we continue to push us forward. As long as we continue doing bigger and challenging things, eventually we're going to hit this point where we're over here and we're actually starting to make the transition from phase 2 to phase 3. Eventually you will get into phase 3, which I like to call the expertise phase. A really good signal that you've actually entered phase 3 is that you're actually starting to solve like problems that are like so hard that they're actually interesting. The tablet just low-key died and then restarted itself. The other thing that you're gonna kind of run into as like you actually have confidence is you're gonna start trying to develop expertise. Kind of the point of like moving into a more professional position is that you kind of go from someone who's like willing to do anything as a game designer to like narrowing in on the stuff you like to do. And now this can either be like a part of game design that you really like. It could be making just AI for like games. It could be just a certain genre of games you really like action RPGs. Either way, you're kind of like narrowing in and you're starting to kind of do harder, more interesting projects. A really good example is a friend of mine is a 3D artist. So he went from, at the very start, just being like a general 3D artist to being a 3D prop designer to developing his expertise and just focusing on making really cool 3D models of guns for like first-person shooter games. And then he got hired to make really cool models of guns because he just made something cool and interesting and he developed his expertise. Part of this is that in phase 3, you start looking at like the companies you would like to work for and like looking at the games they make and kind of breaking down, okay, like what would be the day-to-day responsibilities for a game designer working at that company. So that could be something like looking at Call of Duty maps, and then you go in Unity or Unreal or Godot and make a Call of Duty map. Maybe it's League of Legends, and then you go and build a whole system and combat kit for a champion in League of Legends. You're trying to align your skill set with what you would like to do professionally so that when a recruiter looks at your work, they're like, oh, I can clearly see that this guy's actually great for this job because this is a Call of Duty map design position and he has a Call of Duty map right here. Simple enough. The small point though is you're not just trying to like just simply copy something that's there before, that just like pass it off easy breezy. Like actually do the work to make something like interesting and cool and maybe like slightly innovative on like what these games and genres already have, not just like another piece of white bread to add to the stack. This is a phase where pre-made assets can actually be really good in helping you skip past the basic stuff. At this point, you've already made a character controller, you've already made like probably like Mario or something or some other platformer. You don't gotta do it again. And like honestly, like if you're a designer, you're probably not an engineer. So like for a lot of the smaller stuff, you're not an artist, so you don't gotta spend your time like modeling props. A recruiter looking at your stuff and seeing like actual artwork that's nice, even if it's pre-made and not like programmer blocks, they're probably going to have a higher chance of like actually passing your stuff up the chain to get the job. And you don't need to spend time on that stuff anyway. You've got more interesting stuff to do. You're out here making Monkey Ball 18 or something. To kind of return to the Pokemon analogy, phase 3 is kind of the part where like you're kind of going up to the Elite Four, right? And you've put a lot of work in. You've actually built like a good core team of Pokemon, but you've got some kind of empty slots that you kind of need to fill out to kind of like actually round out your team to actually take the Elite Four. And at this point, you've already done all the work, so no one's gonna blame you if you go back to Victory Road and catch a level 52 Floatzel, so you can actually beat Flint instead of just getting stomped because you took Turtwig as your starter or something. Using pre-made assets here isn't cheating, it's just going to actually let you shortcut the work to get to the stuff that actually matters for the skills you're trying to develop. The general goalpost here is that if you were to join a game development team for a game that aligns with the skill set you're trying to build, you would feel okay taking the job and like performing on that job as a professional. Not that you wouldn't have any question, you wouldn't be learning on the job, but you would have some idea of what you needed to do. The big thing about phase 3 is since you are solving harder problems, those problems are going to take a longer time to solve. Instead of maybe in like phase 2, a project would take you like 2 to 30 weeks. A project in like phase 3 could take you like anywhere from like 1 to 30 months. More if you're on like a team project. In phase 3, you're focusing on like solving hard problems and making hard stuff. To return to the EXP board, phase 3 is a lot less about actually like hitting the end of this bar by going boop, 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 boop. And you hit a kind of a bar here and you get the job and you're done. It's actually more like that the bar has no end on this side, so that if you continue adding stuff, kind of the percentage chance that you actually get hired goes up more and more. Generally, like, you're gonna hit a point where honestly you should feel confident like about your skills and actually getting a job. Now, skills that we went over in this, going through these 3 phases of exploration, experimentation, and expertise, that's not the only factor in you getting a job. There's plenty of others, but the more that you add to this bar, the more you can kind of try to stack the deck in your favor to actually getting to a professional game design job. It's a bit of a road. I personally am biased to saying the work is worth the effort. I hope that this brought you value and that it kind of helped you visualize your path from beginning to end on your kind of like game development journey. If you liked the video, give it a like, or leave me a comment about what you liked or didn't like and what you'd like to see me talk about in the future. Until then, thanks for watching.